Welcome back to our channel. Today we'll delve into the story of Navy SEAL Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor of Operation Red Wings, a man who turned unimaginable loss into a lifelong promise. Stay with us as we uncover the battles he fought after the bullets stopped, the friendships that saved him, and the legacy that still echoes across generations. Grab a seat, take a breath. Our journey starts now. The wind that combed the pines of East Texas carried more than the scent of resin and dust. For Marcus Luttrell, it delivered a promise of distant oceans and difficult paths. Before he could spell Annapolis, he was pressing his forehead to the cool glass of the family pickup, counting the miles to Houston's naval recruiting office in his imagination. It was the mid-1980s, a quieter era between wars, yet every evening news broadcasts still found space for grainy clips of frogmen surfacing beneath black rubber rafts. Marcus and his identical twin, Morgan, watched in rapt silence. When the credits rolled, they raced outside to lash fence posts into crude obstacles and time each other's sprints with a dime store stopwatch. Their father said nothing at first. He simply switched on the barn light before dawn and left an old tractor tire beside a length of rope. If the boys really wanted that life, the tire would show them how badly. By 14, in 1989, Marcus was dragging that tire half a mile up a dirt road every morning, then shouldering his school books as though they were ballast. Neighbors chuckled, yet the repetition forged something sterner than muscle. In the evenings, Vietnam veteran Billy Shelton, a new arrival in town, opened his garage to the twins. Shelton's workout routines bordered on medieval, fingertip push-ups on cold concrete, blindfolded swims across a pond so murky you surface spitting cattail seeds. He never shouted. The only rule was consistency. Through blistering Texas summers and ice-slick winters, the Luttrell boys arrived before first light and left as sunrise painted the treetops pink. Marcus learned that greatness was less a gift than an accumulation of small, relentless deeds. Graduation day came in 1994, a humid May afternoon when tassels stuck to sweaty brows. Friends mapped futures measured in college credits and starter salaries. But Marcus's horizon remained saltwater blue. After a year of community college and a stack of recruitment pamphlets he read until the ink smudged, he signed his enlistment papers. Morgan followed a month later. Boot camp in Great Lakes stripped away hometown mythologies, though not the grin Marcus flashed whenever a drill instructor barked loud enough to rattle ribs. He volunteered for basic underwater demolition SEAL training, accepting the infamous Class 228 slot that would start in Coronado in late 1999. Bud S. is remembered by those who survive it, not for the hours of misery but for the seconds of choice. One such second arrived during surf torture on a moonless October night when trainees, locked arm in arm, lay belly up as Pacific breakers crashed over their faces. An instructor strolled the line offering hot chocolate and a dry blanket to anyone who rang the brass bell of surrender. Marcus felt his teeth chatter so hard, his vision blurred. Then, somewhere beyond the roar, he heard Morgan's whispered dare, "Bet you can't outshake me." Pride overruled pain. The brothers endured, and Marcus earned his trident in early 2000 with stress fractures in both shins, but resolve intact. The decade that followed turned training into testing. September 11th changed rules overnight, and the quiet professional from Texas found himself rotating through hotspots many Americans could not pronounce. In Iraq, he chased cigarette boats suspected of smuggling weapons up the Shatt al-Arab waterway. In the southern Philippines, he tracked kidnappers through jungles that steamed like tea kettles at dawn. Letters home remained cheerful, details censored by self-discipline. Yet friends noticed the freckles of gray in his beard long before his 30th birthday. What he spoke of most on rare leave weekends was the camaraderie that developed when four men shared a single goal so intensely that egos melted like wax near a flame. Early 2005 delivered a new assignment: Afghanistan's Kunar province, a rugged quilt of slate peaks and terraced fields bordering Pakistan. Intelligence warned that a local Taliban cell led by a slender, sharp-featured insurgent named Ahmad Shah was ambushing Marines and threatening upcoming parliamentary elections. Tasked with reconnaissance, a four-man element from SEAL Team 10 would insert covertly, verify Shah's presence, and coordinate a larger strike. Lieutenant Michael Murphy was team leader. Gunner's mate Danny Dietz managed communications. Sniper Matt Axelson provided overwatch. Hospital corpsman Marcus Luttrell, as he liked to remind his mother, just packed the Band-Aids, though he also lugged extra ammo and the dry Texas humor that kept campfire conversations light. On the night of June 27, 2005, a twin-rotor MH-47 Chinook skimmed the ridgelines under starlight. Rotor wash-flattening wildflowers as the team fast roped onto Sautalo Sar. By dawn, they had eyes on a valley where Shah's fighters collected taxes from goat herders. The plan, observe for 2 days, signal air power, depended on remaining invisible. Late morning, however, 3 civilian goat herds wandered directly into the hide site. The Americans debated their fate in hushed urgency. Detain them and risk condemnation if the story reached Afghan elders? Release them and risk immediate compromise? Murphy chose the latter, trusting in local goodwill and the mercy of time. Minutes after the herders disappeared downslope, a boy's voice echoed through the valley like a cracked bell. What followed was a crescendo of feet scrambling on shale, rifle bolts clacking, and a shout in Pashto that translated to one stark command: kill them all. The firefight erupted at treeline, with the vicious intimacy of rocks hurled across a backyard. Taliban fighters used gravity as their ally, firing downhill in volleys that pinned the SEALs against jagged outcrops. Marcus felt the first bullet punch his shoulder, a sensation less like burning metal than a hammer swung against raw nerve. Dietz hunched over the radio handset, took rounds that shattered hip and thumb, yet kept relaying coordinates. When his transmission fell silent, Murphy knew higher command would hear only fragments. He crawled into an open clearing, exposing himself to clear sky for satellite reception, and spoke calmly. "We are surrounded. Need help now." Another bullet tore through his lungs before he finished the grid line. He died with the handset still in his right hand. For Marcus, time splintered into images. Axelson firing one-handed after an RPG concussed him, a ricochet sparking inches from his eyes, the taste of his own blood mixing with dust so thick it coated his molars, an explosion he never knew whose grenade, hurled him off a ledge the height of a 2-story house. Landing on his back, he felt the vertebrae grind like gravel. Darkness threatened to sweep over, but a single idea tethered him to consciousness. If I die here, nobody tells their story. High above, the QRF helicopter thundered toward the ridge, its rear ramp open for fast rope rescue. A Taliban RPG arced upward, struck the fuselage, and ignited a fireball that painted the sky orange. 16 lives gone in an instant that looked almost peaceful from Marcus's vantage, like a sunset blooming then fading. He was the last American left on the mountain, crawling through brush that clawed at open wounds, haunted by the crackle of enemy radios triangulating his path. 4 days blurred into one long struggle. Dehydration warped colors into hallucinations. At one point, Marcus tried to hand a canteen to Murphy, who existed only in memory. He willed himself downhill, dragging shattered legs through gullies trickling snowmelt, hoping each bend might reveal friendlies. Instead, he found a spring where he cupped water in trembling hands. Collapsing beside it, he expected to let go until a bearded Afghan man stepped from the trees, repeating a word Marcus did not yet know. Zamare, Zamare, brother. Mohammed Gulab was a villager bound by Pashtunwali, an honor code older than any modern state. Gulab lifted the broken American onto his shoulders and trudged toward Sabray, fully aware he was inviting Taliban retribution. Inside a mud brick compound, women boiled herbs while children fetched cloth to stanch bleeding. Marcus drifted between delirium and clarity, hearing Gulab forbid armed men at his gate from entering. The standoff lasted nights. Finally, Gulab's young nephew slipped through darkness, skirted Taliban checkpoints, and found a contingent of Marines miles away. The rescue convoy that followed fought uphill at dawn, lifted Marcus into a litter, and flew him to Bagram as the first pale light touched Sautalo Sar. Bethesda Naval Hospital greeted him with white walls and stern warnings. Multiple gunshot wounds, fragmented spine, collapsed lung, and infections that prowled like wolves at the edge of his immune system. He endured surgeries stacked like dominoes, back fusion, knee reconstruction, skin grafts, while struggling with a quieter affliction, visible only in restless nights. Survivor's guilt, doctors called it, though the term felt insufficient. He carried 19 names in his chest pocket, reciting them before sleep lest memory grow lazy. When medical boards deemed him unfit for further combat duty, Marcus wrote instead. At first it was pen on legal pad, then taped dictations, stories tumbling out in present tense. Murphy's casual grin, Dietz's Colorado drawl, Axelson's dry sarcasm about Navy paperwork. Those pages became Lone Survivor, a 2007 memoir that climbed bestseller lists not on sensationalism, but on the gravity of sacrifice. Older readers, many of them veterans of Korea and Vietnam, wrote letters thanking him for capturing the bonds they once feared history would forget. Success brought cameras. Hollywood adapted the book, premieres lit red carpets. Strangers asked for selfies. Marcus walked those gauntlets only as far as he believed they served memory. The first royalty checks funded the Lone Survivor Foundation, offering therapeutic retreats where combat families could speak truths seldom safe at home. He hired equine therapists instead of publicists, built bunkhouses instead of beach houses, and measured wealth in stories rescued from silence. That sense of duty guides the Marcus Luttrell, visible today. A sturdy man with a cowboy hat pulled low, addressing auditoriums of silver-haired listeners who lean forward when he pauses. He tells them the hardest part of war is not bullets but mornings afterward, when a porch swing creaks and no one is there to finish yesterday's joke. He reminds them that freedom is a relay, not a trophy. Each generation carries it as far as breath allows, then hands it off. When Bethesda doctors finally let him limp into daylight late in 2006, Marcus tried something few would have predicted. He lobbied to return to war. Bones were still screwing themselves back together, but he felt useless in a world of quiet hallways and polite condolences. Command agreed to a short rotation to Ramadi, Iraq. The sandstorms there were milder than Kunar's shale, yet every pop of distant rifle fire dragged his mind backward. He lasted 6 months before the surgeons and the Navy brass stepped in for good. His career in uniform was over, and a long silence followed. That silence ended on a kitchen table in early 2007. A friend dropped off a cheap tape recorder and said, "Talk, even if no one listens." Marcus pressed record and poured memory into plastic reels. Murphy's laugh, Axelson's dry one-liners, the way Dietz hummed country music during radio checks. The tapes became chapters. The chapters became Lone Survivor. Publication day in June 2007 felt less like victory than obligation met. What he had not expected was the avalanche book tour spotlights, standing ovations from veterans of World War II who gripped his hand as if passing a baton, and strangers who mailed their own battlefield stories to a Huntsville post office box just to say, "Now I can sleep." Marcus read every line. Public applause did little for the night terrors. He would wake with the taste of Afghanistan's dust on his tongue, heart racing, furniture overturned in the dark. A Navy counselor suggested a service dog. Marcus chose a gentle yellow Labrador and named her DASY, an acronym formed from the initials of his 4 teammates. She slept beside the bed, sensed the tremors before they spiked, and nudged him awake before panic took hold. Then came April 9th, 2009. Marcus was driving home when he heard a single gunshot echo across the farmland. He found Daisy bleeding in a ditch. 2 young men sped away laughing. Something inside the SEAL snapped. He pursued them across 3 counties at nearly 100 miles per hour, phoning a sheriff's deputy while keeping the truck's fender inches from their bumper. Deputies made the arrest, yet Marcus shook for hours afterward, not from anger, but from the realization that old violence still waited just under his skin. The judge later asked why he hadn't opened fire. Marcus shrugged. It was the only good decision I had left to make that night. Grief needed an antidote. In the fall of 2009, while speaking at a charity gala in Dallas, Marcus met Melanie Juneau, the event's petite logistics manager who kept her clipboard like a shield against chaos. She teased him for mispronouncing hors d'oeuvre. He embarrassed her by announcing to a ballroom microphone that she had the most contagious laugh in Texas. Courting was slow, weekly phone calls, Sunday church, long drives past cattle fields where conversation could drift. Marcus confessed to nightmares. Melanie countered with patience sharpened by faith. They married on Thanksgiving weekend 2010 in a country chapel where Morgan stood as best man, and the aisle was lined with empty boots, each holding a white rose for a teammate not present. Fatherhood arrived swiftly. Their son Axe, born May 8, 2011, inherited his mother's eyes in the name of Matthew Axelson. A daughter, Addie, followed in August 2012. Marcus taped a photograph of both infants above his writing desk next to a snapshot of Gulab, the Afghan farmer who had saved him. The montage reminded him that gratitude ran in 2 directions. Gulab's life, however, had grown perilous. Taliban gunmen had torched his timber yard and threatened his children. The U.S. military offered temporary visas, but bureaucracy moved slower than insurgents on motorbikes. Marcus lobbied lawmakers, paid legal fees, even housed Gulab's relatives in secret guest cabins when they fled Kunar. In the summer of 2015, after months of red tape, Gulab landed at JFK International with only a plastic grocery bag and the clothes on his back. American life, chain restaurants, electric doors, and strangers who stared overwhelmed him. The bond between rescuer and rescued remained, yet cracks appeared. Gulab complained that book royalties never reached him. Marcus insisted he had earmarked trust funds that legal advisors were still processing. Misunderstandings spiraled into headlines. Lovers of the fairy tale ending felt betrayed. Cynics claimed they had been right all along. In private, Marcus wrote letters in halting Pashto, trying to reopen a dialogue that once required no words. Controversy found its second wind that same year when investigative journalists questioned the official enemy count on Sotalo Sar. Was it 30 fighters or 200? And whether the SEAL team's radios were disabled earlier than reported. Historians parsed comm logs, retired officers debated rules of engagement on cable news. Marcus refused to rewrite memory under studio lighting. "I'm not a statistician," he told one interviewer. "I am the guy who crawled off that mountain." Yet he also acknowledged in moments away from microphones, that stress warps perception, and that reasonable people could disagree without disrespecting the dead. Meanwhile, Hollywood came calling. Director Peter Berg secured the rights to Lone Survivor and chose Mark Wahlberg to portray Marcus. Filming began in 2012 on New Mexico slopes eerily similar to Cunar's. Marcus spent 1 week on set and then flew home, unable to watch actors reenact friends' final breaths. The premiere, January 2014, set box office records for a modern war film. Viewers wept, critics praised authenticity, survivors quietly compared screen images to their own scar tissue. With royalties accumulating, Marcus created a different kind of business, the Lone Survivor Foundation. Situated on a ranch west of Houston, the retreat hosted small groups of veterans for 6-day programs that swapped fluorescent clinics for open skies and rescued Mustangs. The recipe was simple: sunrise chores, peer counseling under oak trees, and evenings telling unfiltered stories around a mesquite fire. One Marine confided that he hadn't heard his own voice shake since Fallujah until that night. An Army nurse discovered she could sleep without sleeping pills if she first walked the perimeter under stars. By 2021, the foundation had rebranded as the Operation Red Wings Foundation, adding a lodge on North Carolina's Crystal Coast. To date, thousands of families credit those cabins, and Marcus's insistence on uncomplicated hospitality, with giving them back lost pieces of themselves. Parallel to charity, Marcus found another stage: politics. The 2016 Republican National Convention invited him to speak. He walked onto the Cleveland arena floor, cowboy boots echoing, and began not with partisanship but with Murphy's last call for help. The hall quieted. Cameras zoomed. Much of the nation heard his drawl for the first time. Commentators argued over policy nuance, yet few denied the authenticity that sometimes deserts political theater. He has since endorsed candidates, campaigned for veteran-centric bills, and launched Team Never Quit Ammunition, a company whose motto, "Courage is Contagious," appears laser-etched beside each caliber designation. Morgan, the twin who once dared Marcus not to quit during surf torture, charted his own path. He served multiple deployments, shattered 3 vertebrae in a parachute jump, and earned a medical retirement. In 2022, he won a congressional seat in Texas. Press photos of the two brothers on election night capture mirrored posture and contrasting expressions. Morgan beaming with victory, Marcus offering the restrained smile of someone who knows battles start after banners drop. Not every microphone moment was polished. In a 2018 conference Q&A, a college student pressed him on civilian casualties. Marcus bristled, words clipped, jaw set. Later, he found the student backstage and apologized, explaining that some wounds itch when prodded. They talked an hour about ethics and empathy. No reporters caught the follow-up. Marcus has made a habit of that. Public missteps mended quietly afterward, out of frame, where humility can breathe. One private crisis did break into headlines. In 2020, after a friend died by suicide, Marcus found himself pacing the porch at 3 a.m., unable to accept a world where warriors survived bullets yet succumbed to emptiness. He dialed every number on his phone until sunrise, checking on men he had not spoken to in years. The spontaneous outreach grew into a standing rule: call 3 brothers a day. Podcast listeners adopted the ritual, and social media feeds soon filled with the hashtag number 3ADAY, a grassroots lifeline credited with multiple intervention saves. Then came television's call again. Glenn Beck produced After Action, a 2024 roundtable series featuring Marcus, Marine Dakota Meyer, and Air Force PJ Dan Schilling. The premise was modest: gather veterans around a barnwood table, pour black coffee, and discuss everything from moral injury to social media rage. No teleprompters, no studio audience. Ratings surprised even network executives, particularly among viewers over 50, who said the cadence reminded them of kitchen table honesty, once common and now rare. Meanwhile, Gulab's story took another turn. After years of cultural whiplash in Dallas, he moved to a quieter enclave in California. Reports surfaced that the two men had reconciled over a long phone call facilitated by a mutual friend. No press release followed. Whenever journalists pressed Marcus for details, he offered a soft smile and said, "There are conversations too sacred for newsprint." The years since have settled into a rhythm. Foundation retreats each quarter, podcast every Wednesday, school gym speeches most Fridays, and family dinners that are non-negotiable. Axe is now taller than his father and wears number 19 on the football field. Addie paints watercolor landscapes of the Hindu Kush she has never seen. Melanie keeps a framed photo of Daisy near the kitchen sink. Fresh flowers beside it every April in quiet remembrance. Why does Marcus Luttrell still matter almost 2 decades after Red Wings? Partly because his saga encapsulates an American generation's longest war, but mostly because it asks citizens to stare directly at the cost of sending volunteers into harm's way, and to keep staring long after parades fade. He bridges worlds, the elite operator who admits he sometimes braids his daughter's hair with hands that once loaded rifle magazines, the rugged Texan who quotes Pashtun proverbs about hospitality, the patriot who concedes that love of country grows, not shrinks, when mistakes are acknowledged rather than buried. And that's all for today's video. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. See you next time. See